I'm Allison Parker, 28, and I never thought my sister's palm connecting with my face would be the moment that finally set me free. For years, I'd been the family ATM, the reliable one, the responsible sister who couldn't say no. That slap echoed through my apartment, but it was the sound of my mother's laughter afterward that truly broke something inside me. The Hawaii vacation they'd planned, using my credit, became the final chapter in our toxic story. If you've ever wondered when enough is enough with family, my story might give you your answer. Before I dive in, let me know where you're watching from in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe if family drama stories like mine resonate with you. I grew up as the middle child in what I thought was a normal American family. My older sister Megan is now 32, and my younger brother Ethan is 24. On the surface, we were the typical suburban family, living in a modest home in Ohio, taking annual camping trips, and celebrating holidays together. That facade cracked when I was 15 and my parents divorced. My father moved across the country for a new job, and over time, his presence in our lives diminished to occasional phone calls and birthday cards. My mother, Rebecca, never quite recovered financially from the divorce. Though she received child support, it wasn't enough to maintain our previous lifestyle. She found work as a receptionist, but refused better opportunities that would require additional training or education. "I'm too old to start over," she'd say, though she was only in her early 40s at the time. I was always the studious one in the family. While Megan was popular and focused on her social life, and Ethan struggled with learning disabilities, I found refuge in academics. My high school counselor encouraged me to apply for scholarships, and I managed to secure enough funding to attend the state university with minimal loans. I worked part-time throughout college, graduated with honors in accounting, and quickly secured a position at a respected firm. My first mistake was telling my family about my starting salary. The day after my graduation celebration, my mother called with tears in her voice. The roof was leaking, and the repair would cost $2,800. "I wouldn't ask if I had anyone else to turn to," she said. I transferred the money that afternoon. The small loan was never mentioned again, much less repaid. This established a pattern that would continue for years. 3 months later, Megan needed $1,500 for car repairs. Then my mother's refrigerator died, another $1,200. Ethan needed textbooks and a laptop for community college, $900 more. Each time, the request came with promises of repayment that never materialized. By the time I was 25, I had been promoted twice and had a comfortable salary, but my savings were minimal because of these constant emergencies. When I bought my first condo, I was thrilled to have a place of my own. Within a week, Megan showed up at my door with her oldest child. "Tyler has a work thing, and Mom's busy. I just need you to watch Zoe for the afternoon," she said, already backing toward her car. That afternoon turned into evening, then overnight. Megan didn't return my calls until the following day, when she arrived with fast food and a casual thanks, as if I'd done her a minor favor instead of providing 24 hours of unplanned childcare. As Megan had 2 more children, Lucas and Emma, now 5 and 3, the impromptu babysitting requests increased. I became the default caregiver whenever Megan and her husband Tyler had important plans, which seemed to include everything from actual work commitments to bar hopping with friends. Tyler particularly frustrated me. He bounced between jobs, never staying anywhere longer than 6 months, always with a story about terrible management or unfair expectations. Yet somehow he always had money for his vintage car collection and weekend fishing trips. Meanwhile, Megan worked part-time at a boutique, but spent more than she earned on clothing and home decor. My mother enabled all of this. When I expressed frustration about the constant babysitting and financial requests, she would sigh and say, "Your sister has 3 children to take care of. You only have yourself. Family helps family." That phrase, "family helps family," became a weapon used against me whenever I hesitated to provide money or time. The guilt was effective. I'd think about my comfortable condo, my stable job, my freedom, and feel selfish for not wanting to share my resources. Last year, when my grandmother passed away, she left each grandchild a small inheritance of $5,000. Mine went entirely to helping Megan and Tyler catch up on their mortgage after they received foreclosure warnings. They had spent their own inheritances on a lavish anniversary trip to Cancun, assuming they could figure out the mortgage situation later. My portion of the inheritance saved their house, but the only thanks I received was Megan saying, "That's what family is supposed to do." 3 months ago, I received another promotion and a modest raise. I hadn't told anyone in my family, but somehow, Megan found out. Perhaps she overheard me on the phone, or maybe she went through my mail during one of her visits. Whatever the source, the knowledge that I had more income sparked a new wave of requests. My mother's car suddenly needed extensive repairs. Megan and Tyler's roof developed a mysterious leak. Ethan needed help with a security deposit for a new apartment. With each request, the emotional toll grew heavier. I began having anxiety attacks before family gatherings, knowing they would inevitably include requests for money or time. I started working longer hours, partly for the career advancement, but mostly to have a valid excuse to avoid family obligations. "Sorry, I have to work" became my mantra, though it rarely deterred them. "You can take one day off," they'd insist, not understanding or caring that my career required dedication and presence. Despite all this, I continued to help when I could. I told myself it was temporary, that eventually everyone would get on their feet. I didn't realize I was enabling a cycle that had no intention of ending on its own. After a particularly grueling week that included a major client presentation and over 60 hours at the office, I dragged myself home on Friday evening, dreaming of a hot bath and an early night. When I opened my door, I found Megan, Tyler, and my mother sitting in my living room. They had used the spare key I'd given my mother for emergencies to let themselves in. "Surprise!" Megan called out, as if their uninvited presence in my home was a gift. I set down my laptop bag and kicked off my heels, too exhausted to even muster proper irritation. "What's going on?" They exchanged excited glances, and Tyler pulled out his phone to show me a series of photos: pristine beaches, luxury resorts, palm trees, and stunning ocean views. "We're going to Hawaii," Megan announced, clapping her hands like a child. 2 full weeks in Maui. "We found this amazing rental property right on the beach." "That's great," I said cautiously, already sensing there was more to this visit than sharing good news. "When are you going?" "Next month," my mother said, beaming. "The first 2 weeks of June. The weather will be perfect." I nodded, calculating how they could possibly afford such a trip. Tyler must have gotten a new job, or perhaps they'd come into some money I didn't know about. "We have a small favor to ask," Megan said, using the phrase that always preceded a not small request. "We need you to watch the kids while we're gone." I blinked, processing this. "All 3 kids?" "For 2 weeks. It's perfect timing," Megan continued, ignoring my stunned expression. "School will be out, so you won't have to worry about drop-offs and pickups. They can just stay here with you." "Here? In my 1-bedroom condo?" I asked, looking around at my compact living space. "Well, you could stay at our place," Tyler suggested, as if he was offering a solution rather than creating a bigger imposition. That way they'd have all their stuff. I took a deep breath. I can't take 2 weeks off work, especially not in June. We have quarter-end closings, and I've already committed to covering for a colleague who's getting married. Megan waved this off. "You can work from home. Lots of people do it these days. Zoe's old enough to help with the little ones during your calls." "She's 7, I pointed out. "Going on 17, Megan laughed. "She's very mature for her age." My mother jumped in. "We've already looked at flights and put deposits on some activities. It's going to be amazing." Something in her phrasing caught my attention. "Wait, you've already made bookings? How are you paying for all this?" A flash of discomfort crossed Tyler's face before he recovered with a smile. "We've been saving up." I would have believed that more if I hadn't just covered their mortgage payment 3 months earlier. Really? That's great, I said, still suspicious. Megan glanced at my mother, then said, well, we did have to get creative with the financing. But the important thing is, we found a way to make it work. What does creative financing mean exactly? I asked, my accountant brain immediately on alert. We just needed a good credit score for the rental property, my mother explained. So we used your address on the application. My stomach dropped. You what? It's not a big deal, Megan insisted. The payments are going through our account. Your address just helped us get approved. That's fraud, I said flatly. Tyler snorted. Don't be so dramatic. People do this kind of thing all the time. A horrible suspicion made me reach for my purse. I dug out my wallet and checked my credit cards. My secondary card, which I kept for emergencies but rarely used, was missing. Looking for this? Megan asked, pulling my credit card from her purse. We borrowed it to book a few activities. The volcanic helicopter tour had a great early bird special, but it was ending today. I snatched the card back, fury building inside me. You stole my credit card? And used my address for a rental application without my knowledge. Borrowed, not stole, Megan corrected. We're going to pay you back. And like Tyler said, the address thing is no big deal. It is a big deal, I exclaimed. It's identity theft and fraud. Oh, please, my mother sighed. Stop being so uptight. This is for a family vacation. A vacation I wasn't invited to, I pointed out. Megan rolled her eyes. Because someone needs to watch the kids. Besides, you don't have kids or a husband, so your time isn't as valuable. You can take time off whenever you want. I stared at her, unable to believe what I was hearing. My time isn't valuable because I'm single and childless? Your sister deserves a break from motherhood, my mother said firmly. It's the hardest job in the world, and she never gets time off. Tyler nodded in agreement. We need this, Allison. We've been under a lot of stress. Besides, it's not like you have anything better to do anyway. They all looked at me expectantly, and I realized with a chill that they had interpreted my shocked silence as agreement. They genuinely believed I would rearrange my entire life, sacrifice my paid time off, and potentially jeopardize my job to provide 2 weeks of childcare so they could enjoy a Hawaiian vacation they couldn't afford. A vacation they had already begun financing through fraudulent use of my information and stolen credit card. I took a moment to collect myself, fighting the urge to scream. Instead, I sat down across from them and spoke as calmly as I could. I understand that you're excited about this trip, but there are several problems here that we need to address. First, I cannot take 2 weeks off work in June. It's simply not possible with my current responsibilities. Megan's smile faltered. But you have vacation time, right? I do, I acknowledged, but I decide when and how to use it. I've already planned my time off for the year, and I need to keep some in reserve for emergencies. This is an emergency, my mother insisted. Family needs you. I shook my head. Watching your children while you take a luxury vacation is not an emergency. It's a request, one that I have every right to decline. Tyler leaned forward, his voice condescending. You can work from home while watching them. Plenty of parents did it during the pandemic. Those parents were watching their own children, not taking on someone else's full-time, I pointed out. And even they will tell you it was nearly impossible to be productive. I can't jeopardize my career for this. Your career, Megan mimicked. It's always about your precious job. Meanwhile, I've put my career on hold to raise 3 children. That was your choice, I said quietly. Just as my career is my choice. My mother gasped as if I'd said something blasphemous. Motherhood isn't a choice, it's a blessing. It's still a choice, I maintained. But that's beside the point. The second issue is that you used my address and potentially my credit information to secure this rental property. That's fraud, and it puts me at financial risk. We'll make all the payments, Tyler insisted. Your credit score just helped us get a better rate. And what happens if you can't make the payments? The collection agencies will come after me, I said. Not to mention that you stole my credit card to book activities. Borrowed. Megan corrected again. God, why are you being such a bitch about this? After everything we've done for you. I blinked in surprise. What exactly have you done for me? This question seemed to throw her momentarily. We're your family. We've always been there for you. Been there for me how? I pressed. By constantly asking for money? By dumping your kids on me without warning? By making me feel guilty for having a successful career? You're so ungrateful, my mother spat. You have a good job and a nice home while your sister struggles with 3 children. The least you could do is help out. I have helped out, I said, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. I've given thousands of dollars that were never repaid. I've provided countless hours of free childcare. I've put my own life on hold repeatedly to bail all of you out of situations of your own making. Tyler stood up, his imposing frame looming over me. So what are you saying? You're too good for your family now. I refused to be intimidated and stood as well. I'm saying that I'm setting a boundary. I will not watch your children for 2 weeks, so you can take a vacation you can't afford. And I expect you to cancel any bookings made with my credit card immediately. Megan's face contorted with rage. You can't do this to us. We've already told the kids about Hawaii. That's not my problem, I said firmly. You should have asked me before making any plans that involved me. Family helps family, my mother repeated, her voice icy. Your sister needs this break. Then you watch the kids, I suggested. Or hire a babysitter with the money you were planning to spend on this vacation. We can't afford a babysitter for 2 weeks. Megan exclaimed, inadvertently admitting they couldn't really afford the vacation either. Then you can't afford a 2-week Hawaiian vacation, I said simply. Tyler took a step toward me, his body language threatening. Listen here, princess. We're not asking anymore. You're doing this because we're family, and that's what family does. I stood my ground, though my heart was racing. No, I'm not. And I'd like you all to leave my home now. After everything we've done for you. Megan shouted. All the times we included you in family events when you'd otherwise be alone. Inviting me to events I often end up financing is not doing me a favor, I pointed out. You think you're so much better than us with your fancy job, Tyler sneered. But we all know you're just a sad, lonely woman who'll die alone because you're too selfish to care about anyone but yourself. His words stung, hitting insecurities I tried to keep buried. But I held firm. I'm not selfish for having boundaries. Now please leave. Family helps family, my mother repeated, as if saying it enough times would change my mind. I have helped, I said, repeatedly, but I won't be taken advantage of anymore. Tyler laughed harshly. Taken advantage of? You've got to be kidding me. Do you know how pathetic your life looks to everyone else? No husband, no kids, nothing but work. We're doing you a favor by letting you be part of our family. That's enough, I said, moving toward the door and opening it. Leave now or I'll call security. Megan wasn't done. You know what your problem is? You're jealous. You're jealous that I have a husband and beautiful children while you go home to an empty apartment every night. I almost laughed at the absurdity. Yes, I'm so jealous of your husband who can't hold down a job and your life that's so wonderful you need to escape from it for 2 weeks. It was a low blow, but I was beyond caring at this point. You'll regret this, Tyler warned, his voice low and menacing. We can make things very difficult for you. Are you threatening me? I asked incredulously. He's just saying you might want to reconsider, my mother interjected smoothly. After all, families should stick together. I held the door wider. I'm not reconsidering. Please leave now. As they gathered their things, I added, and I expect that rental booking using my address to be canceled by tomorrow. If I find out you've used my personal information for anything else, I'll report it as identity theft. Megan paused at the door, her face a mask of fury. You know what? I've always known you were selfish, but I never realized just how cold you really are. I feel sorry for you, Allison. Truly. With those parting words, they finally left. I closed the door behind them, leaning against it as my legs threatened to give way. The confrontation had left me shaking, but for the first time in years, I felt something unexpected breaking through the anxiety and guilt: relief. The relief was short-lived. Less than an hour later, my doorbell rang incessantly, followed by pounding that threatened to crack the wood. When I checked the peephole, I saw Megan, Tyler, and my mother again, their faces contorted with anger. Against my better judgment, I opened the door. "What now?" Megan thrust her phone in my face. On the screen was an email from the vacation rental company: booking canceled, failed credit verification. "What did you do?" she demanded, her voice trembling with rage. "I didn't do anything," I replied honestly. "But it looks like the rental company realized something wasn't right with your application." "You called them, didn't you?" Tyler accused. "You told them we used your address without permission." "I haven't had time to call anyone," I said. "But using my address without my consent was wrong, and you know it." My mother pushed past me into the apartment. "We have to fix this right now. The children are so excited about Hawaii. We can't disappoint them." "That's not my problem," I repeated, growing tired of the entire situation. "You made plans you couldn't afford and tried to involve me without my consent. These are the consequences." Megan followed our mother inside, with Tyler close behind. I felt cornered in my own home, but stood my ground. "You have to call them," Megan insisted. "Tell them it was a misunderstanding and that you approve the use of your address." I shook my head. "No, I won't do that. It would be lying, and it could constitute fraud." "It's only fraud if someone reports it," Tyler scoffed. "Don't be so dramatic." "I'm an accountant," I reminded him. "I understand financial regulations better than you do. What you're asking me to do is illegal." Megan's face flushed with anger. "So what? You're going to let your niece and nephews down because of some stupid technicality?" "I'm not letting anyone down," I said firmly. "You created this situation, not me. After everything we've done for you." Megan screamed, her voice rising to a pitch that made me wince. "What exactly have you done for me?" I asked again, genuinely curious what they believed they had contributed to my life. "We're your family," my mother shouted, as if that alone was a contribution. "That's not doing something for me," I pointed out. "That's just a relationship status." "We've included you in holidays," Megan sputtered. "We've let you be aunt to my children." "Let me," I repeated incredulously. "You mean when you drop them off without warning and disappear for hours? That's not letting me be an aunt. That's using me as free childcare." "See? This is exactly your problem," my mother said, shaking her head in disgust. "You view spending time with family as a burden rather than a blessing." "I love spending time with my niece and nephews," I clarified. "What I don't love is being taken advantage of, having my boundaries ignored, and being treated like a resource rather than a person." Tyler moved closer, his bulk intimidating in my small living room. "Just make the call to the rental company. Fix this." "No," I said simply. "I won't. You owe us." Megan screamed, and before I could react, she slapped me hard across the face. The sound echoed in the sudden silence. My cheek stung, and tears sprang to my eyes from the physical shock. I raised my hand to the burning skin, staring at my sister in disbelief. What happened next was even more stunning. My mother laughed, a sharp, mean laugh that cut through the silence. "Maybe that will knock some sense into you." Tyler didn't laugh, but he smirked, leaning down to whisper, "We can make things very difficult for you if you don't cooperate." Very difficult. In that moment, time seemed to slow down. I saw my sister's face, still contorted with rage, but now with a hint of satisfaction at having hurt me. I saw my mother's amusement at my pain. I saw Tyler's threatening posture and the menace in his eyes. And suddenly I saw something else, a pattern that had been present my entire adult life, but that I had refused to acknowledge. This wasn't just family members asking for help. This was financial and emotional abuse. The unauthorized use of my address and credit card wasn't just an overstep, It was identity theft. The slap wasn't just my sister losing her temper, it was assault. As if watching a movie of my own life, memories flashed before me. Megan borrowing money for emergencies that were never repaid. My mother guilting me into paying bills she could have managed if she'd budgeted properly. Tyler's veiled threats whenever I hesitated to help. The constant invasion of my time and space without regard for my needs or feelings. I'd normalized it all because they were family. I'd told myself it was temporary, that someday they would get on their feet and things would be different. But in that crystallizing moment after the slap, I realized the truth. Nothing would ever change unless I changed it. I took a deep, steadying breath and lowered my hand from my cheek. When I spoke, my voice was calm and clear. I want all of you to leave my home right now. Not until you fix this. Megan demanded, still seething. You hit me, I stated flatly. You committed assault in my own home, and you think I'm going to help you now? Don't be so dramatic, my mother scoffed. It was just a slap. Sisters fight all the time. We're not fighting, I clarified. I set a boundary and Megan responded with physical violence. That's assault, not a sisterly disagreement. Are you threatening to call the police on your own sister? Tyler asked, his voice dangerously low. I met his gaze steadily. If you don't leave right now, yes. That's exactly what I'll do. You wouldn't dare, my mother said, but uncertainty had crept into her voice. Try me, I challenged, pulling out my phone. They exchanged glances, suddenly unsure. This isn't over, Megan warned as they finally moved toward the door. You've ruined everything and you'll regret it. I said nothing, just held the door open as they filed out. Tyler paused on his way past me. We know where you live, where you work, he said quietly. And we know all your personal information. Think about that before you do something you'll regret. The threat hung in the air between us. I should have been terrified, but instead, I felt oddly calm. Get out, I said one final time and closed the door firmly behind them. I stood with my back against the door for several minutes, listening to their angry voices fade as they left the building. My cheek still stung and my heart raced, but my mind was surprisingly clear. A decision had crystallized in those moments after the slap, a decision that had been building for years without my conscious awareness. I was done, completely and irrevocably done. I walked purposefully to my bedroom and pulled my suitcase from the closet. I wasn't sure exactly where I was going yet, but I knew I couldn't stay here tonight. They had a key and Tyler's threats still echoed in my ears. I needed to be somewhere safe while I figured out my next steps. As I methodically folded clothes into the suitcase, I heard my phone buzzing with incoming texts. I glanced at the screen to see Megan's name, but I didn't read the messages. Whatever justifications or accusations she was sending would only cloud my judgment now. I packed only essentials. Enough clothing for a few days, toiletries, my laptop, and chargers. Then I moved on to gathering important documents. I collected my passport, birth certificate, social security card, and financial records, placing them securely in my laptop bag. I added the few pieces of jewelry I had inherited from my grandmother, items of more sentimental than monetary value, but things I couldn't bear to lose if my family decided to retaliate by entering my apartment again. While packing, I heard more knocking at my door, but I ignored it. Through the peephole, I saw my mother standing alone, probably sent back as the reasonable one to convince me to change my mind. I returned to my bedroom and continued preparing. With my essential items gathered, I took a moment to look around my condo. Despite living here for 3 years, there were surprisingly few items I felt attached to. The furniture had been chosen for practicality rather than sentiment. The artwork on the walls had been selected to match the decor rather than to express my personality. Even the books on my shelves were mostly professional references rather than stories I loved. It struck me that I had built a life designed to serve others rather than myself. My home was a convenient place for family to drop in, my career a reliable source of financial support for their emergencies, my time an endless resource they could tap whenever needed. But what did I want? What brought me joy? I realized with a pang that I hardly knew anymore. This revelation only strengthened my resolve. I finished packing, then pulled out my phone and began the process of reclaiming my life, one step at a time. First, I sent a text to my friend Stephanie, family emergency. Need a place to stay for a few days. Can I use your guest room? Her response came quickly, of course. Everything okay? I'll explain when I see you. Thanks, I replied. Next, I opened my banking app and went through each account, canceling every automatic payment I had set up to help my family. The monthly transfer to my mother's account for emergency fund canceled. The automatic payment toward Megan and Tyler's utilities canceled. The recurring deposit to Ethan's tuition fund paused, pending a conversation with him. I moved on to my credit cards, logging into each account to check for unauthorized charges. Sure enough, I found several recent transactions for airlines, tour companies, and restaurants in Hawaii. I called the credit card company immediately. I need to report fraudulent charges and request a new card, I explained to the representative. I'm sorry to hear that, Ms. Parker. Can you identify which charges you believe are fraudulent? I listed the Hawaii-related expenses, explaining that my card had been taken without my permission and used by a family member. Would you like to file a formal dispute and potentially press charges? The representative asked. I hesitated only briefly. Yes, I would. And I need to make sure my card is canceled immediately. After securing my credit cards, I called the 3 major credit bureaus to place a fraud alert on my credit reports. This would make it harder for anyone to open new accounts in my name without additional verification. I have reason to believe my personal information may have been used without my consent, I explained to each bureau representative. I need to protect myself from potential identity theft. With my financial security addressed for the moment, I turned to documenting what had happened. I took photos of my cheek, which now showed a faint red mark from Megan's slap. I wrote down a detailed account of the conversation, the physical assault, and Tyler's threats, dating and signing the document. I then opened my email and composed a message to myself, creating a time-stamped record of events that included all the details I could remember. I attached photos of my face and a list of the fraudulent charges I had discovered. Having this documentation might prove crucial if the situation escalated further. As I worked through these protective measures, my phone continued to buzz with incoming calls and texts. I silenced it without looking at the messages. Whatever crisis my family was experiencing as a result of their canceled vacation plans was not my emergency to solve. Instead, I sent an email to my apartment management company. Due to safety concerns, I need to request an immediate lock change on my unit. My spare key was used without authorization, and I have concerns about unauthorized entry. Additionally, please update your security protocols to not allow entry to anyone claiming to be my family member without my explicit permission. With these immediate protective measures in place, I did one final scan of my apartment, looking for anything else of importance I might need. My gaze fell on a family photo on my bookshelf, the 5 of us at Thanksgiving 2 years ago, smiling as if everything was perfect. I left it behind. I shouldered my bags and walked out without a backward glance. In the elevator down to the parking garage, I felt a curious mixture of emotions: grief for the family relationships I was leaving behind, anxiety about the uncertain future, but predominantly an overwhelming sense of relief. For the first time in years, I was putting myself first. As I loaded my car and pulled out of the garage, my phone buzzed again with an incoming call from my mother. I connected it to my car's Bluetooth system and answered, putting her on speaker. Allison, thank goodness you picked up. We need to talk about what happened. There's nothing to discuss, I said calmly, keeping my eyes on the road. Of course there is. Megan is very sorry for losing her temper. We all said things we didn't mean. Now, about the Hawaii trip. Goodbye, Mom, I interrupted and ended the call. I blocked her number, then did the same for Megan and Tyler. I would unblock them eventually, once I had established my new boundaries and was emotionally ready to interact with them again, if that day ever came. But for now, I needed space and silence to rebuild my life on my own terms. As I drove toward Stephanie's house, I felt lighter than I had in years. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time, it was truly mine to choose. I spent that first night at Stephanie's in a fog of emotional exhaustion, but also strange exhilaration. When I finally told her everything that had happened, her response was validating in a way I hadn't expected. "Allison, I've been worried about your family situation for years," she admitted. "The way they treat you isn't normal or healthy. I'm so proud of you for standing up for yourself." The next morning, I woke to dozens of missed calls and unread messages from unknown numbers, my family using friends' phones to try to reach me after I'd blocked them. I deleted them all without reading them. Instead, I focused on creating a plan for moving forward. My first stop was my bank, where I met with a personal banker to explain the situation. "I need to ensure my accounts are secure," I explained. "Family members have had access to my financial information, and I'm concerned about unauthorized transactions." The banker helped me close my existing accounts and open new ones with enhanced security features. We went through recent transactions to identify any additional suspicious activity. "There's a pattern of large withdrawals to the same accounts over the past few years," he noted, showing me the transaction history. "Were these authorized by you?" I nodded reluctantly. "Yes, those were loans to family members. But I need to make sure no new transactions can occur without my explicit approval." Next, I visited a lawyer who specialized in identity theft and family law. The consultation fee was steep, but worth every penny for the peace of mind it provided. "Based on what you've told me, you have several legal issues to address," the lawyer explained. "The unauthorized use of your address and credit card constitutes identity theft, even when done by family members. The physical assault, while minor in legal terms, is still assault. And the threatening behavior afterward creates a basis for a potential restraining order if needed." "I don't want to press charges," I said, surprising myself with the realization that despite everything, I wasn't ready to see my family face legal consequences. "I just want them to leave me alone while I figure things out." "That's your choice," the lawyer assured me. "But I recommend we send a formal cease and desist letter outlining the legal boundaries they've crossed and the potential consequences if the behavior continues. This creates a paper trail if things escalate." I agreed to this approach, and we drafted the letter together. It was firm but factual, listing the specific incidents of financial abuse, identity theft, physical assault, and threatening behavior, along with the relevant legal statutes they violated. It concluded with a clear statement that any further contact must be through my lawyer until I indicated otherwise. While I was still at the lawyer's office, my phone rang with a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered it. "Allison? It's Ethan." My younger brother was the one family member I hadn't blocked, partly because he hadn't been involved in the Hawaii incident, and partly because our relationship had always been less fraught than my relationships with Megan and our mother. "Ethan, I can't talk about this right now," I said wearily. I know. Megan told me what happened, her version, anyway. But I wanted to check if you're okay." "That wasn't right, what they did." His words caught me off guard. You think they were wrong?" "Of course they were wrong," he said, sounding surprised that I would question it. "Using your credit card without permission? Hitting you? That's messed up, Allison. Really messed up." Tears sprang to my eyes at this unexpected support. "Thank you for saying that. Where are you staying?" "Megan and Mom went to your condo this morning, but the manager wouldn't let them in. They're pretty upset." "I'm safe," I said, not willing to share my location. "And I'm going to stay away for a while. I need space from all of this." "I get it," Ethan said quietly. "Just let me know if you need anything, okay? And for what it's worth, I'm sorry I didn't stand up for you sooner. They do the same thing to me, you know. Not as bad, but still." This revelation didn't surprise me entirely. I'd noticed how our mother and Megan tended to manipulate Ethan as well, though in different ways than they did with me. "Thank you for calling," I said sincerely. "It means a lot." After ending the call with Ethan, I felt marginally better knowing I had at least one family member who understood my position. But the hardest part was still to come. The following day, while at work, I received an urgent message from the front desk. Visitors were insisting on seeing me. I already knew who it was before the receptionist described them. "I'm sorry, but I can't see them," I told her. "Please ask them to leave or security will need to escort them out." 20 minutes later, my boss called me into his office. "Allison, is everything okay? There was an incident in the lobby." My stomach dropped. "What happened?" "A woman claiming to be your sister caused quite a scene. Security had to remove her and a man I assume was her husband. They were shouting about you stealing from them and abandoning your family." I closed my eyes briefly, mortified. "I'm so sorry. I'm dealing with a personal situation and they're not handling it well." To my surprise, my boss was understanding. Family issues can be complicated. "Do you need some time off to sort things out?" I shook my head. "Actually, work is the one stable thing in my life right now. I'd rather stay busy." "In that case, I've instructed security not to allow them in the building. And if you need to work from home for a few days, that's fine too." His support was another unexpected gift in this difficult time. "Thank you. I really appreciate that." The next escalation came in the form of social media. Megan began posting vague, but clearly targeted status updates about ungrateful family members and selfish people who abandon their nieces and nephews. Mutual friends and distant relatives began reaching out, asking what was happening. I decided not to engage with the public drama. Instead, I drafted a single, private message to the few family members and close friends whose opinions mattered to me. Some of you may have heard concerning things about me recently. I'm dealing with a difficult family situation that involves financial boundaries and personal safety. I'm taking some space for my own well-being. I appreciate your understanding and respect for my privacy during this time. Most responses were supportive, though some relatives predictably took Megan's side without hearing my perspective. A few older family members sent messages about the importance of forgiveness and family unity, clearly not understanding the severity of what had occurred. 3 days after I left my condo, I received an alarming call from my credit monitoring service. Someone had attempted to open a loan in my name. The fraud alerts I had placed prevented the application from being processed, but it was a chilling confirmation that Tyler's threats weren't empty. I called my lawyer immediately, who advised documenting this attempt and adding it to our growing file. "This strengthens your case if you decide to pursue legal action," she explained. "It shows a pattern of deliberate financial abuse." A week into my self-imposed exile, I took a personal day to meet with a real estate agent. "I need to sell my condo and find a new place to live," I explained. "Preferably in a secure building with good privacy policies." The agent didn't ask for details, just nodded professionally. "I understand. Security is increasingly important to many clients. Let me show you some options that might work for your situation." By the end of that day, I had listed my condo for sale and put a deposit on a one-bedroom apartment in a building with 24-hour security, no exception visitor policies, and a management company that took privacy seriously. It was slightly farther from my office, but worth the additional commute for the peace of mind it provided. As I settled into this new chapter of my life, the harassment from my family gradually evolved. The initial fury gave way to guilt-tripping, with my mother leaving tearful voicemails on my work phone, the one number I couldn't change, about how I was tearing the family apart and breaking her heart. Megan's approach shifted from anger to fake reconciliation attempts. "We miss you," she texted from new numbers I hadn't yet blocked. "The kids keep asking where Aunt Allison is. Can't we just talk?" Tyler's messages remained threatening, but became more subtle. "Hope your new place has good security," one text read, making my blood run cold. How did he know I was moving? I forwarded each message to my lawyer without responding. The cease and desist letters had been delivered, and each contact was now documented as a violation of the boundaries we had legally established. 2 weeks after the incident, the credit card company completed their investigation and reversed all the fraudulent charges related to the Hawaii vacation. They also provided documentation that would be useful if I ever decided to pursue criminal charges for credit card fraud. Around the same time, I received an unexpected email from Ethan containing screenshots of conversations between our mother and Megan discussing other financial schemes they had been running using my information. I found these on Mom's iPad when she asked me to help her with something, Ethan wrote. I thought you should know. They've been taking out small loans in your name for over a year. I'm so sorry, Allison. I had no idea it was this bad. The screenshots revealed a pattern of systematic financial abuse that went far beyond what I had imagined. Small personal loans, utility accounts, even a cell phone plan, all opened using my information without my knowledge. No wonder my credit score had mysteriously dipped despite my careful financial management. With this new evidence, I finally filed a police report for identity theft. I didn't name names in the report, simply stating that my personal information had been used without my consent to open multiple accounts. This created an official record without immediately triggering a criminal investigation against my family members, a line I still wasn't quite ready to cross. 3 weeks into my new life, I was having dinner with Stephanie when she asked the question I had been avoiding. Do you think you'll ever reconcile with them? I set down my fork, considering the question seriously. I don't know, I admitted. Right now, I can't imagine a relationship that wouldn't just fall back into the same toxic patterns. They don't see anything wrong with what they did. In their minds, I'm the villain in this story. And what do you think? She pressed gently. I think I finally understand that I deserve better, I said slowly. I deserve relationships that are reciprocal, not exploitative. I deserve to set boundaries without being punished for it. And if my family can't offer that, then maybe we don't have a place in each other's lives right now. It wasn't a final decision about cutting ties forever, but it was an honest assessment of where I stood. For the first time, I was prioritizing my own well-being over family obligations, and despite the pain and upheaval, it felt unquestionably right. 6 months after the slap that changed everything, I stood in my new apartment, looking out over the city as the sun set. The view wasn't as nice as from my old condo, but the sense of security more than made up for it. The building's strict security protocols meant that no one, not even family, could access my home without my explicit permission. It was a physical boundary that reinforced the emotional ones I had been working so hard to establish. My journey of healing had been neither quick nor linear. There were days when the guilt nearly overwhelmed me, when cultural expectations about family loyalty made me question my decisions. There were nights I lay awake wondering if I had overreacted, if I should have tried harder to work things out. But those moments became less frequent as time passed and as I continued my weekly therapy sessions. What you experienced was financial abuse and emotional manipulation, my therapist had explained during our first session. The fact that it came from family members doesn't make it any less harmful. In fact, it often makes it more damaging because of the trust involved. Through therapy, I began to recognize patterns that had been present my entire life. The way my mother had always favored Megan, making me feel I needed to earn love through achievement and compliance. How Megan had learned to weaponize her role as a mother to manipulate others. How I had internalized the belief that my needs were less important than everyone else's. Boundaries aren't selfish, my therapist reminded me regularly. They're necessary for healthy relationships. People who respect you will respect your boundaries. My financial recovery had been more straightforward, though not without challenges. I had worked with credit bureaus to dispute fraudulent accounts and slowly rebuilt my credit score. I had created a detailed budget that, for the first time, didn't include regular loans to family members. The result was surprising. Within months, I had more savings than I'd accumulated in years of higher earning. I had maintained my no-contact policy with my mother and Megan, though their attempts to reach me had continued for months. The cease and desist letter had eventually stopped Tyler's more threatening messages, especially after my lawyer sent a follow-up warning that included some of the evidence we had gathered. My relationship with Ethan had evolved into something cautiously positive. After several honest conversations, we had established a new dynamic based on mutual respect rather than the dysfunctional patterns of our childhood. "I've been enabling them too," he admitted during one of our monthly lunch meetings. "But seeing how they treated you and how much better you're doing now made me realize I need to set my own boundaries." He had started therapy as well and had moved out of our mother's house into his own apartment. He was focusing on finishing his degree without the constant drama that had previously derailed his efforts. "Mom and Megan still talk about you all the time," he told me during our most recent lunch. "They've created this whole narrative where you had some kind of breakdown and abandoned the family for no reason. It's like they've completely rewritten history." I wasn't surprised. "That's easier than acknowledging what they did." "Do you think you'll ever talk to them again?" he asked. I considered the question carefully. Maybe someday if they show genuine change and respect for boundaries. But I'm not holding my breath, and I'm not putting my life on hold waiting for that to happen. My social circle had shifted dramatically over these months. Some friends who had known my family couldn't understand my decision and gradually drifted away. Others revealed themselves to be true supporters, standing by me even when they didn't know all the details. I had also joined a support group for survivors of family financial abuse, discovering that my experience was far from unique. The stories shared in that circle helped me realize that walking away wasn't a failure on my part. Sometimes it was the only healthy option. Professionally, I had continued to thrive. Without the constant drain of family emergencies and unexpected childcare duties, I had more energy and focus for my career. I had taken on challenging projects that previously would have seemed impossible to manage alongside my family obligations. My boss had noticed the change, recently mentioning me as a candidate for a senior position that would open next year. Perhaps most importantly, I had begun to rediscover myself beyond my role as the family problem solver. I had taken up hiking on weekends, joined a book club that actually discussed books rather than gossip, and even started dating again, something that had been nearly impossible with my previous, unpredictable schedule. My latest date had been with Ben, a kind environmental engineer I'd met through the book club. When he asked about my family, I had given a simple, honest answer: "We're not close right now. I'm focusing on building healthy relationships." He had nodded without pressing for details. Family can be complicated. Mine too, in different ways. That response, understanding without judgment, felt refreshingly normal after years of explaining and justifying my family's chaotic dynamics. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I turned away from the window and looked around my apartment. Unlike my old place, every item here had been chosen with intention. The artwork reflected my actual tastes rather than what would look appropriate for entertaining. The furniture was arranged for my comfort rather than to accommodate unexpected visitors. Even my schedule was now my own, no more dropped-off children or emergency family meetings disrupting my plans. The pain of losing my family connections hadn't disappeared entirely. There were still holidays and milestones that triggered grief for what could have been. I missed my niece and nephews, though I had sent them birthday gifts through Ethan to maintain some connection without engaging with their parents. But alongside that occasional sadness was something I hadn't experienced in years: peace. The constant anxiety about what crisis would come next had faded. The reflexive guilt whenever I prioritized myself had diminished. The walking on eggshells feeling that had dominated family interactions was gone. I had learned that forgiveness didn't necessarily mean reconciliation. I could forgive my family for their actions, understanding that they were operating from their own wounds and limitations, without putting myself back in a position to be hurt again. That forgiveness was for my benefit, not theirs, allowing me to release the anger and resentment that might otherwise have consumed me. I had also learned that family isn't defined solely by blood. True family consists of people who respect your boundaries, celebrate your successes without jealousy, support you through difficulties without keeping score, and love you without conditions. Some of those people might be biological relatives, but many might not be. Most importantly, I had learned that walking away from toxic relationships, even family ones, wasn't selfish or weak. Sometimes it was the strongest, most self-respecting choice available. The cultural expectation that family ties should be maintained at all costs ignored the reality that some family dynamics were fundamentally unhealthy and resistant to change. As I prepared for bed that night, my phone pinged with a text from Stephanie. Proud of how far you've come this year. Dinner next weekend to celebrate? I smiled and replied affirmatively, grateful for the genuine friendship that had helped sustain me through this challenging transition. The journey hadn't been easy, and it wasn't over. There would likely be more difficult moments ahead, more attempts by my family to pull me back into old patterns, more occasions when I would question my decisions. But I had found a strength I didn't know I possessed, the strength to say no to abuse and yes to my own well-being. That slap across my face had been painful, but it had woken me from years of accepting the unacceptable. Walking away had been terrifying but necessary. And rebuilding my life on my own terms had been the most empowering experience of my adult years. If you're watching this and recognizing similar patterns in your own family relationships, know that you're not alone. Setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's essential for healthy relationships. You deserve respect, honesty, and kindness, especially from those who claim to love you. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do, both for yourself and ultimately for them, is to walk away until real change is possible. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members? What helped you through that process? Please like this video if it resonated with you, subscribe for more stories about finding strength in difficult situations, and share with someone who might need to hear this message today. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, you deserve relationships that build you up, not break you down.